The red light above the booth door was still glowing when I took off my headphones. Recording finished. My throat was raw, my chest warm with that familiar exhaustion that always followed a long session. The studio smelled like metal and coffee and the faint sweetness of my own perfume. This room had been my sanctuary for 10 years, my voice trapped in walls of foam, turning pain into music, heartbreak into platinum. I pushed the door open and stepped into the corridor connecting the main studio to the mixing room. And then I heard his voice. Not the gentle, smiling Daehyun who kissed my cheek before every recording session, but the real one. "She's finally finishing the album," he said, laughter curling around the words. "Hannah is just my ATM. Once this drops, I'm filing for divorce and taking half." My feet froze. There was a woman's laugh with him, soft, amused, intimate. The door to the side room was slightly open, the studio mic still live, their conversation bleeding into the hall like poison. I pressed my palm against the wall. "She won't see it coming," he continued. "All that crying into the mic, all that hard work, it's basically my retirement plan." The woman said, "And me?" He chuckled. "You? You'll finally get the version of me she never deserved." My heart didn't break. It shattered. For years, I had written songs about loyalty, about love that never ran, about the quiet safety of being chosen. And this man was laughing about turning me into an exit strategy. I backed away slowly, afraid the sound of my breathing would give me away. "Hannah is just my ATM." My vision blurred. My ears rang. The walls tilted as if the studio itself had lost its balance. I walked out. I didn't remember opening the front door. I didn't feel the cold night air. I just kept moving, the words replaying in my head like a broken chorus. "Just my 80. Once the album drops. Taking half." My phone vibrated in my pocket. I didn't look at it. I stepped into the street. A horn blared. Then another. Lights exploded around me. Someone shouted my name. And then, impact. My body was weightless, flying, then crushing, then nothing at all. Silence. I remember the inside of the ambulance. The ceiling lights blurring. The metallic taste in my mouth. Someone pressing hard against my chest. "She's losing her pulse," a voice said. Another voice shouted numbers. My world narrowed to a single thought. I will never sing for him again. Then my heart stopped. There was no tunnel, no light, just darkness. But in that darkness, something else was born. Not the Hannah who sang to be loved. Not the Hannah who gave her voice away for approval. A new Hannah opened her eyes in the void. And she wasn't soft. She wasn't gentle. Her voice wasn't a gift anymore. It was a weapon. I woke up to silence. Not the comfortable studio silence, the kind that hums with electricity and anticipation, but the heavy, padded quiet of a hospital room. Machines beeped somewhere near my head, slow and stubborn, as if arguing with death itself. I tried to move. Pain exploded through my ribs, sharp and unforgiving, stealing the air from my lungs. "She's awake," a man said. I turned my head. Kong Jun was sitting beside my bed, his black suit jacket draped neatly over the chair, sleeves rolled to reveal scars I'd never once asked about. His hair was messy, eyes bloodshot, hands clasped so tightly together his knuckles had turned white. For 5 years he had been my shadow, my bodyguard, my silent wall, my unshakable constant. And yet I had never truly seen him, until now. "You stayed," I whispered, my throat barely able to form sound. His jaw tightened. "I never left." A nurse rushed in, checking monitors, adjusting tubes, telling me not to speak too much. I barely heard her. My eyes were locked on Kong Jun. Something inside me had shifted. The fog that usually wrapped around my thoughts was gone. I didn't feel confused. I felt precise. Awake in a way I had never been before. "Where is he?" I asked. The nurse hesitated. Kong Jun answered for her. "Daehyun hasn't been allowed in," he said. I made sure of it. A cold calm washed over me. Not relief. Not anger. Clarity. "Good," I said. Kong Jun leaned closer, lowering his voice. Hannah, before you lost consciousness, you kept repeating something. You said, "He's using me. Don't let him touch my work." The words felt distant, like lyrics I once wrote for someone else. I remember everything, I said. His eyes widened. The doctors said you might. I didn't lose anything, I interrupted. Except whatever love I thought I had. Silence fell between us, thick and charged. Then Kong Jun did something he had never done before. He took my hand. His palm was warm. Steady. I've protected you from crowds, stalkers, threats, he said quietly. But I couldn't protect you from him. And I hate myself for that. I stared at our intertwined fingers. You didn't choose him. I did. No, he said firmly. He chose to betray you. His voice cracked on the last word. I looked up. And that was when I saw it. Not duty, not professionalism, not loyalty. Love. Raw. Unfiltered. Terrified of being too late. Hannah, he said, swallowing hard, I've loved you for 5 years. The machines around me faded into nothing. You don't have to say anything, he continued quickly. I know you just woke up. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. When your heart stopped, I thought I'd lost you forever. Tears slid down my temples into my hair. I heard him, I whispered. In the studio. He called me his ATM, said he divorced me after the album dropped. Kong Jun's face darkened. That's why I'm here, he said. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a black USB drive. Your car accident wasn't the only crash that night. I've been collecting evidence for months. Phone logs. Hotel cameras. Private recordings. Your studio picked up more than just that one conversation. I tightened my grip on the drive. You kept this all this time? I was waiting for you to be ready, he said. I didn't want to save you. I wanted to stand with you. A strange smile touched my lips. Then stay, I said. Because I'm not the woman I was before. My voice isn't for healing anymore. His eyes softened. What is it for now? I leaned closer, my heartbeat steady and fierce. War. The USB drive felt heavier than it should have. A tiny piece of plastic holding the ruins of my marriage. Kong Jun waited until the nurses left before plugging it into the tablet he'd brought from home. The hospital room dimmed as the screen filled with folders, timestamps, hotel names, studio logs. This is everything I've gathered over the past 6 months, he said. Your schedule made you invisible to your own life. He used that. I didn't feel anger. I felt precision. Play the first one, I said. A video opened, grainy hotel hallway footage. Dae-hyun stepped into frame, arm wrapped around a woman I recognized instantly. My former assistant. The one who cried when she said she admired my music. He told her you were overseas, Kong Jun said quietly. The next file was an audio recording. My husband's voice. Unmistakable. She won't notice the charges, he said in the clip. Her team is loyal to me now. My stomach tightened, but my expression didn't change. I paid for my own erasure, I murmured. Kong Jun leaned closer. There are 7 women, Hannah. Over 3 years. Some were employees. Some weren't. But every one of them thought you were the obstacle between them and the life they deserved. I exhaled slowly. No, I said. I was the resource. We went through file after file, missed tours explained away as brand conflicts, private messages that mocked my vulnerability, bank transfers hidden behind shell accounts. My husband hadn't just cheated. He had engineered my disappearance. I want the contract file, I said. Kong Jun hesitated. That one'll hurt the most. I don't bleed anymore, I replied. He opened it. Dae-hyun's signature sat at the bottom of a digital document, his agreement with my label to take partial ownership of my unreleased masters after the album's release. My album. My voice. Sold without my knowledge. Something inside my chest clicked into place. That's the moment, I said softly. The moment what? The moment I stopped being his wife and became his mistake. Kong Jun studied my face. You're not reacting the way the doctors warned us you might. I died, I said simply. Whatever woman loved him died too. He nodded slowly, as if accepting something sacred. That evening, after I was discharged, Kongjun drove me somewhere I hadn't been in years, a small building on the edge of the city with faded paint and a broken neon sign. "What is this?" I asked. He parked and turned to me. "Your first recording studio. Before fame. Before marriage." The memory struck me harder than any file. This was where I used to sing barefoot, tears soaking into the floorboards, dreaming of being heard. We stepped inside. Dust floated in the air. The old mic still stood in the corner, like a relic of another lifetime. "I kept the lease," Kongjun said. I didn't know why. I just couldn't let it go. I walked to the mic, touched it. My reflection stared back at me from the cracked mirror, bruised, bandaged, but burning. "I don't want to go back to my label," I said. Kongjun didn't look surprised. "Then don't." "I don't want to sing what they want anymore." "Then sing what you need." I turned to him. "We start over. No contracts. No handlers. No masks." His eyes locked onto mine. "Together?" "Yes," I said. "But understand this. My voice isn't about healing hearts anymore. It's about truth. About survival." He stepped closer. "Then I'll make sure the world hears it." I inhaled. And for the first time since the accident, I sang not softly, not sweetly, but sharply, like a blade finally unsheathed. The first song I recorded in that forgotten studio didn't sound like anything I had released before. There was no softness in my voice, no trembling vulnerability. It cut. Every note was deliberate, controlled, sharpened by betrayal and rebirth. I wasn't singing to be loved anymore. I was singing to be heard. Kongjun stood behind the glass, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes never leaving me. "Again," he said through the intercom. Not louder, deeper. I closed my eyes and let the words fall like verdicts. After the final note, silence filled the room. Not applause. Not admiration. Respect. "You're not the same artist," he said when I stepped out. "I'm not the same woman," I replied. We spent the next weeks building something from nothing. He sold his apartment to finance the first sessions. I pulled out notebooks filled with half-finished lyrics I'd hidden from my husband, songs about autonomy, about reclaiming yourself when everyone thinks they own you. One night, as rain hammered against the studio windows, Kongjun leaned against the desk, exhaustion etched into his face. "You don't have to destroy yourself to destroy him," he said gently. "I'm not destroying myself," I answered. "I'm removing the parts he used." He didn't argue. He never did. The press thought I was in recovery abroad. My label thought I was taking a mental health break. Dae-hyun kept calling, dozens of missed calls lighting up my phone like a warning system I refused to answer. Until one evening I did. "Hannah," he said, relief flooding his voice. "Where have you been?" I was terrified. "I heard you," I interrupted calmly. A pause. "Heard what?" "In the studio. You called me your ATM." Silence stretched between us. Then he laughed nervously. "You misunderstood." "No," I said. "I finally understood." His tone sharpened. "This isn't funny. The album is scheduled. You're under contract." I voided it, I replied. "Your signature doesn't own my voice. You can't just walk away." "I already did," I said, and ended the call. Kongjun had been standing behind me. "Are you okay?" he asked. I looked at him and, for the first time, didn't feel like crying. "I think I finally am." That night, I recorded a song called Unowned. It wasn't about him. It was about me. Weeks later, the leak happened. A former stylist, one of the women in the files, released the evidence Kongjun had gathered. Hotel footage, messages, contracts. My phone exploded with notifications. The industry turned on him overnight. And I didn't release a single statement. I let my silence become the loudest sound in the room. When I finally posted, it wasn't an apology. It was a single line. "My voice is not for sale anymore." Kongjun read it over my shoulder. "That will change everything." I met his gaze. Good. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't singing for a marriage. I was singing for myself. And the world was about to hear what a woman sounds like when she refuses to be owned. We registered the company under a name no one in the industry would expect from me. Black Box. Kong-jun insisted on it. "You're silenced in boxes your whole career," he said. "This one protects you instead." I liked that. We rented a warehouse on the outskirts of the city, bare concrete floors, rusted windows, echoes bouncing off the walls. It smelled like dust and engine oil, but to me, it smelled like freedom. "This is insane," I murmured, staring at the empty space. "No," Kong-jun replied. "It's clean. We built everything ourselves." He negotiated with independent producers. I selected artists based on one rule: no contracts that stole voices. No forced images. No silence clauses. When the press finally cornered me outside a cafe, I didn't run. "Miss Hannah, are you abandoning your career?" a reporter asked. "I'm rescuing it," I said. Dae-hyun filed for divorce the next day. The legal notice arrived at Black Box in a thick white envelope, arrogant even in print. "He's trying to freeze your assets," Kong-jun said, reading the documents. I laughed. That man still thinks I belong to him. We went through the evidence again, slowly, surgically. I wasn't doing this to hurt him. I was doing it to end him. One night, long after the office lights went out, Kong-jun and I sat on the warehouse roof, legs dangling over the edge. "You could have left," I said quietly. "When I was in the hospital, you didn't owe me anything." He looked at me, eyes steady. I owed myself the truth. "What truth?" "That loving you wasn't a mistake," he said. "It was just postponed." My heart didn't race. It anchored. When our first artist signed with Black Box, a girl who had been dropped for refusing cosmetic surgery, I cried in the bathroom so she wouldn't see. "You saved me," she said. "No," I whispered. "We saved each other." The court date arrived quietly, like a predator. Dae-hyun walked in wearing the suit I bought him for our anniversary. He didn't look at me, but I watched him realize. He no longer had power. The judge listened to recordings, contracts, messages. And when the ruling came down, his voice shook. "Your husband used marital privilege to exploit intellectual property," the judge said. "This court finds the agreements void." Dae-hyun finally looked at me then. Not angry. Afraid. Outside, reporters shouted questions. I didn't answer. Kong-jun squeezed my hand. "Where to now?" he asked. I looked at our warehouse glowing in the distance. To work. The song that ended him wasn't a revenge anthem. It was a confession. I recorded it at dawn, when the city was still half asleep and the warehouse smelled like cold concrete and fresh coffee. Kong-jun stood in the control booth, his reflection blurred in the glass, his eyes sharper than any producer I'd ever worked with. "Whenever you're ready," he said. I inhaled. And I sang. Not about betrayal. About erasure. About being loved only when useful. About waking up one day and realizing your name had become a product instead of a person. When the final note faded, Kong-jun didn't speak. He just pressed stop and let the silence sit between us like something sacred. We released it at noon. By midnight, the industry was in flames. People didn't hear a celebrity. They heard themselves. 1,000 hidden stories poured out in comments, messages, posts, assistants, dancers, stylists, interns. People who had been consumed and discarded. And Dae-hyun? He was everywhere. Not for his achievements. For his disgrace. His lawyers tried to bury the song, claiming defamation. Kong-jun responded by releasing the raw studio logs proving authorship. "This is your voice," he said, handing me his phone. "And no one gets to mute it again." Dae-hyun finally showed up at Black Box 2 days later. I watched him through the glass doors as he stood in the lobby, like a ghost of my past. "He's asking for you," the receptionist whispered. "Let him wait," I said. 10 minutes later, I walked in. His face cracked when he saw me. "You ruined me," he said hoarsely. "No," I replied calmly. "You built this ruin yourself. I just stopped hiding it." He laughed bitterly. "You wouldn't exist without me." I tilted my head. "I existed before you. You just didn't notice." His voice dropped. I loved you in my own way. That wasn't love, I said. It was ownership. Kong Jun appeared behind me. You're not welcome here, he said. Dae-hyun glanced at him with venom. Enjoy her while it lasts. She destroys everything she touches. I didn't flinch. I rebuild what you tried to erase, I said. And I will outlive your shadow. He left without another word. That night, Kong Jun and I stood on the roof of the warehouse again. Are you afraid of me now? I asked quietly. He didn't hesitate.
No.
I've never trusted you more. I closed my eyes, leaning my forehead against his shoulder. For the first time in years, my voice wasn't echoing in empty rooms. It was standing with me. Fame didn't return to me like a wave. It returned like a reckoning. People didn't ask about my outfits anymore. They asked about my survival, about the cost of being adored while being owned. Every interview felt less like publicity and more like testimony. I stopped calling myself an artist. I started calling myself a witness. Black Box grew faster than we could manage. Artists who had been silenced, reshaped, erased, they came with bruised dreams and trembling hope. We didn't promise them stardom. We promised them autonomy. One night, after a 12-hour negotiation that ended with a contract that actually protected the singer, Kong Jun collapsed into the chair across from me. You're changing the industry, he said, voice rough. No, I replied. I'm changing the rules of survival. The divorce finalized quietly. No public apology. No reconciliation tour. Just legal language severing what should have never been mistaken for love. When the papers arrived, Kong Jun placed them on my desk and waited. I stared at my name in black ink. Single. Unowned. How do you feel? He asked. I thought about the woman who once cried in recording booths because she believed pain was the price of love. I feel unoccupied, I said. Like my heart finally has its own address. That night, we didn't talk about business. We walked along the river where I used to practice lyrics as a trainee, back when dreams were heavier than reality. Hannah, Kong Jun said suddenly, you don't need me anymore. I stopped. That's not true. You don't need me to survive, he clarified. And that's the first time I've ever been able to say that without fear. I faced him. The city lights framed his quiet strength, the man who had protected me from the world while letting me fight my own battles. I don't need you, I said slowly. But I want you. He swallowed. I've waited 5 years to hear that. I reached for his hand, not out of desperation, not out of damage, out of choice. This isn't about rescue, I continued. It's about standing in the same storm without asking the other to disappear. He nodded once, deeply. Then I'm here. We didn't rush. We didn't label. We just existed side by side, letting something new grow, without fear of being consumed. When I returned to the studio, I recorded one last song under my old stage name. Then I retired it. The next release wasn't Hannah the Idol. It was Hannah, the founder. And when my voice filled the room again, it wasn't pleading. It was free. The grand opening of Black Box wasn't glamorous. There were no velvet ropes. No flashing cameras. No luxury sponsors pretending to care. There was a cracked concrete stage, folding chairs, borrowed lights, and 30 artists who had once been told they were nothing without permission. I stood behind the microphone and waited until the room settled. My name is Hannah, I said, voice steady. I used to believe my voice existed to be taken. Today, it exists to be protected. Applause didn't erupt. It resonated. After the speeches, the performances began, raw, imperfect, fearless. One singer cried halfway through her song and didn't apologize. Another forgot lyrics and laughed. No one edited them. No one erased them. Kong Jun stood at the back, arms folded, scanning the crowd with the same quiet vigilance he'd used for 5 years. Only this time, he wasn't guarding a celebrity. He was guarding a future. Later, when the warehouse emptied and the city folded into night, we sat on the edge of the stage with takeout boxes between us. You're really leaving the mainstream, he said. I'm not leaving music, I replied. I'm leaving permission. He smiled faintly. There was no grand confession. No cinematicus. Just warmth, presence, a peace neither of us had known before. Dae-hyun faded from headlines. Not because I destroyed him. Because I outgrew him. Months later, I received a letter from a girl in a rural town who had recorded her first song using free black box tools. She wrote, "I didn't think my voice mattered until I heard yours. Stop apologizing." I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer where I used to keep awards. This was worth more. That night, I stood in the studio alone and sang, not for charts, not for survival, not for love. Just because I could. Kongjun watched from the doorway. "You sound like yourself," he said. "I finally am," I replied. "I didn't lose my voice when I died. I lost the need to give it away. And in that silence between who I was and who I became, I didn't find revenge. I found ownership. Of my sound. Of my story. Of my life." And beside me, without obligation or chains, stood the man who never tried to save me, only to stand with me when I finally saved myself.